Tom Murphy, of course, is practically owe my career to him. He's one of the guys that took me in, and our first conversation was December 1974. He asked me what committees that I wanted to be on, and I said appropriations, and he smiled, and he said, young man, he said, not only will you not be on the committee, you won't be in the room when we're talking. And then he said, what's your next one? I said, Ways and Means, and he laughed. He said, who have you been talking to? A freshman doesn't go on appropriation or Ways and Means. And then I asked him again, either Banks and Banking or Health and Ecology. He said, oh my gosh, who have you been talking to? He said, well, I'll consider one of those. And about 2 weeks later, he saw me and put his arms around me and said, you know, you're going to be all right. He said, I like what you did. I said, what's that? What I do, Mr. Speaker? He said, well, your first choice was Banks and Banking and Health and Ecology, but you gave it to me as your third choice, and you got what you wanted. And he said, that's pretty clever. And he said, you stick close to me. And in 4 years, he put me on Ways and Means, which was unheard of in those days when it comes to seniority. And in 8 years, he put me on appropriations, and that was unheard of at that time. And Joe Frank Harris just happened to be chair of the Appropriations Committee, and I became friends with Joe Frank Harris. Joe Frank Harris became governor, and I became Joe Frank Harris, the first time African American became floor leader to a governor. So you could see the chain of events.
We see in your office here pictures with presidents and that kind of thing. Where did that begin, and what do you think it brings back to Georgia through you?
Well, I believe that there is a total connection and a correlation between the federal government and the state government. There's a natural reliance on one another. And the state government budget is made up of a major portion of it comes from the federal government. So there is a partnership when it comes to funding. And to me, funding is a quality of life issue when it comes to essential programs that we have to deliver to the public. So with that in mind, I didn't start it automatically myself with the federal relationship. I got a break. One of my dear friends was Ben Brown, the late Ben Brown, and he was at one time the chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, and they talked to me, and I became chair. I was elected in 1975, but I became chair of the Black Caucus in 1980. Very quickly, they kind of took me in the arms, he and Bobby Hill, and Ben Brown were the two leaders in the House at that time from Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. And although I knew Jimmy Carter, I didn't have the relationship. Then when he was running for president, I had just gotten elected. I was almost running the same time. I was running, George Buds was running for governor, Jimmy Carter was running for president, Calvin Smyre was running for the state legislature. So we were all in the family together of being elected. So one day we were talking in the ante room of the House, and Ben Brown said to me, you ought to get involved in Jimmy Carter's campaign. And I said, what can I do? He said, I'd like for you to travel. Can you take some time to travel? I said, sure. So I went to Mississippi, I went to Alabama, and I campaigned for Jimmy Carter, and he won. So that was my entree to presidential politics. And when Carter came to the Capitol, they asked me to be on the escort committee. It was my first escort committee, was for President Carter. And I was part of the small group that met with him and escorted him to the Georgia House of Representatives chamber. And that started my relationship with him and with Hamilton Jordan, his chief of staff, and all of those that ran. And so that was my first, and I went to the White House several times, and so that was my first foray. And then I understood then the power, the influential aspect that could be helpful to you when it comes to public policy and to funding. It was not based on the political, it was an irony of it that the Democratic thing wasn't very prevalent in Carter's campaign. It was the fact that I knew him. He was our former governor, and that was my linkage. That was my heartfelt support for him, was that he was a good, decent man. and I admired him, and I admired his wife, and I got to know his family. And to me, that gave birth to my national politics, national political tendencies, and that inspired me and to want to do that again and again and again. And so I've established a national friendship and network of people around the country. Practically in almost every state, I have somebody I can call.
And you would give that as advice to others?
Oh yes, I would say, and you know, that's why I say I've been truly blessed, because who has this at 20-some years of age? I mean, it's just not offered to you, because most of the time it takes some time for you to get into that arena, and it just doesn't. It's just not something you planned, and something that you can take credit for. When I was elected in 1975, there were 90 black legislators in America. Now there are almost 800. They were only from 20-some states. Now it's 40-some states. So you know, I always think about that, and I owe so much to so many. I'm not the brightest bulb, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but my work ethics is what has sustained me. The fact that I believe in building the blocks to get to the next level. And that's been instilled in me a long time as a kid from my mother and father. My mother was a housewife. My father was a military officer, a pilot. And I got it from him that you know, it's not a sin to fail, it's a sin not to get up. And he taught me that as a young man, and that has sustained me over the years. So politics is a way of providing, you know, I always tell people the only people in America who actually set public policy are elected officials. And public policy determines how you and I and our families live every single day. And so why wouldn't you be involved? Why wouldn't you be an advocate for a better quality of life? We have our differences here. Right. I mean, you report the news, you're around a lot. Although there are major differences here, there still is some civility. There still is some relationships. And when the differences occur, they occur, but if you watch things closely, they don't last. They just don't last. You know, I always tell people this, and I tell the young legislators this: never get angry. I mean, leave your emotions at home. I mean, present yourself, you know, emotionally when you want something done, and give it in that fashion. But never get so angry because Donna made a big gift with you on Monday, but you need her on Thursday, because you're in a deliberative process. You're in a deliberative body. You know, you got to have 90 friends almost on any given day, or 90 people to vote for a bill. And when it's 103 to 77, I mean, we can't pass any bill without what? Some support. And so, and there are things that I'm adamantly opposed to that is, you know, presented by the opposition, by the Republican Party. But at the same time, you have to measure, you know, what you want to do, and stand by your principles and go from there. But I tell people all the time, you know, fight with vigor, you know, be in opposition with vigor and knowledge of what you're speaking about. But don't get, you know, don't let the anger overtake you. Because, like I said, the object of the game is to pass good legislation, good public policy, or be in opposition to bad public policy.